All right. Hello and welcome, everybody. This is Ben Chiriboga, Head of Growth at Nexel. You are tuning in to one of our very special spotlight conversations. And today I have the distinct pleasure of sitting down with Alex Sverdlov from Atlant Security. And what we're going to be talking today about specifically is Alex's history and his viewpoint on the state of M&A security when it comes from a privacy standpoint, as well as the dangers that sort of back up M&A deals today. So Alex, thank you so very much for sitting down with me. Hopefully,
thanks for having me.
Yeah, hopefully you're doing well wherever you're at. Why don't we start off very simple and give us a little bit of your potted bio. You and I were speaking sort of off camera a day ago a little bit about how you got into this. So I thought that was a really interesting story. So tell us your bio, how you've gotten there, and don't leave out any of the details. But yeah, bring everybody up to speed about why you're here today speaking with us.
Yeah, well, I've been in cybersecurity for the past 15 years. I worked in Microsoft as part of their security team, and I worked in Hewlett-Packard and Microsoft. When I worked for Microsoft, I traveled the world and helped quite a lot of government organizations, like in the Middle East, mostly in Asia. So in the Middle East, I worked with Saudi Arabian governments. Then in Asia, I worked with one of the largest banks. And in all those organizations, I helped build their cybersecurity. I was also an external consultant to the UAE's nuclear energy organization, Emirates Nuclear Energy Corporation, for a year. And I mean, and I also was a speaker several times at the largest security conferences in Russia. And I also wrote the book, by the way, Protecting Law Firms. Nobody knows about this book because I don't know how. I'm not a seller. I'm a cybersecurity expert. Right. But yeah, if you add me on LinkedIn and send me a message, I'll send you a copy of the book. Yeah, well, I do cybersecurity. That's my life. And somehow, at some point, a law firm approached me needing cybersecurity advice, and that law firm turned out to be linked to the nuclear energy field. Then they recommended me to another law firm, and they recommended me to another law firm, and I started working with law firms. Then I started working with startups, legal tech startups. Yeah. So I'm in this field. Yeah. And yeah, I help law firms fix issues. First discover that they have issues, because many times in startups they don't have any clue that someone is in their network or they have a security problem, and they don't think they need that. But when they discover it, I help them architect and develop a way out. And specifically the topic of our conversation today, when it comes to mergers and acquisitions, many law firms know that confidentiality is important, but they don't know how to achieve it. It's like ephemeral idea of
the world, right?
Yeah. But getting there, knowing that you need it, and getting there are two different things. So we'll try to help you get there.
We'll try to bridge that today. So that's a great conversation. Great icebreaker, great introduction to you. I want to ask you a question though. So your history sort of led you in one way or another through the nuclear industry up into law firms. I'm interested, over the course of, you've been doing this a long time, over the course, and certainly cybersecurity, the internet has changed for all of us who don't live in the field. And I think that this is a good intro conversation. You know, what has basically been the biggest across any industries, and then we're going to get into the legal industry, but by and large, how has cybersecurity, if you had to sum it up in an elevator speech, how has cybersecurity changed in terms of an actual industry, and sort of like, and maybe then within the context of like, how have the risks changed? Because it's all about managing risk at the end of the day. What's been the real changes? Like for somebody who is so outside of this, you know, how have we thought about it? Is there a pattern to the way that it sort of has changed in general?
Yeah, well, 15, 20 years ago, cybersecurity was about teenagers who played with computers, right? So those teenagers grew up in the past 15 years or 20 years. They grew up, they got many friends, and now there are organizations, criminal organizations, doing purely hacking with 1,000 members, 1,000 employees. Let's put it this way: not members, but employees, because they employ those people to participate in cybercrime. And there are more than 270 such organizations.
Yeah.
So that we know of, right? Because the ones that we know of are a few, and most of them we don't even know about them. Like China is 1.4 billion people. We will never know how many hacking teams are operating from there. But the way it changed over the years is complexity and amount of attacks that are out there. 15 years ago, you had an antivirus, you had a firewall, you were fine. Because a teenager would not be able to bypass an antivirus easily. They still could, but it's another topic. Now, an antivirus and a firewall is it's like having a paper lock to your safe. It's really not effective. But IT teams today are still not aware, largely not aware of the complexity of the attacker's capabilities and what they can do, how quickly can they do it, and how difficult it is to detect it. So we learn of government level cyber attacks 10 years after they happen. Because for 10 years, they've been doing it for 10 years. And after 10 years, we developed the capabilities to detect them. And government level hackers, they exist in every country out there. I mean, every country, even the smallest ones, they try. If they can't build it, they buy it. You know, and there are organizations which sell governments the ability to have this capability. And not every government is following, let's say, a moral,
Sure. Yeah. The new
not every government is.
Yeah.
So it's about power and M&A deals. Let's go back to M&A deals and how that affects law firms. Many M&A deals are of national security importance. Like if you're buying a telecom, for example, a telecom is a critical infrastructure. Or if you're buying an energy company, if you're anytime that a deal involves telecommunications, maybe sometimes health-related data like pharmaceuticals, energy, all such deals are of interest to governments, and not only to governments but to private organizations as well. And they have their means to get to the information. And that awareness is important for law firms to have that awareness that for such deals, but not only for such deals. Let's put away the governments, let's put away critical infrastructure and come back down to earth to the regular M&A deals that we are law firms are dealing every day with. Even then, you have risks and you have third parties, competitors. Let's say you're selling a company. This company has 10 competitors on the market. All of them will be interested to find out about the deal, to find out critical information about the deal. Like there is one document, confidential marketing memorandum. which contains the whole strategy of the company, everything about the company in a single document.
Yep.
If the competitors of this company get their hands on this document, I mean, they might get years ahead of the others.
Yep.
So how much would they pay for it? Would they pay $1,000, $10,000? Getting inside the email of a corporate email account, the price in the dark market on the underground websites is around $1,000.
Yeah.
So that should be kept in mind. The price of entrance is very low, and it is low because it's extremely easy to get into a company's emails or a company's file storage or document management systems.
Yeah.
We should make it harder. If we make it harder, they'll move to the next target.
Right. Yeah. So this is a great, so that was super helpful as kind of like a background to where cybersecurity has kind of come from. And basically, to summarize it, I see it as increased complexity, increased sophistication, and also just lots more players in the market, basically trying to engineer some of these attacks. All right, so let's move the conversation from broad general cybersecurity and sort of the importance, obviously, for M&A deals, either on a government level, on an infrastructure level, all the way down to the smallest deals on a kind of inner corporate level. And I think the point here is that there's a lot of service providers out there basically providing that really sort of span the market. So you don't just need to be Coca-Cola, or you don't just need to be the Canadian telecom needed to be worried about this. There's basically somebody who's willing to do it for everybody. So let's tee this up, because today we're talking obviously to lawyers and law firms that span everything from solo practitioners all the way up to international law firms. Can you talk in general, now that you've been doing this for a while within this market, what is the state generally of privacy and cybersecurity defenses whenever it comes to the legal market in general?
The state is as it would be in any conservative industry.
Right.
Law firms, on average, in 90% of the cases, outsource their IT to a third-party provider. And those third-party providers usually sign a contract with a law firm that they take care of IT and security. When they sign the contract, it says in the contract that the IT provider takes care of security, right? So the law firm feels confident and they forget about it. Now, question is the IT provider really capable to deliver that IT security service? Usually they've sent, if you're very lucky, your IT company, outsourced IT company, has sent their personnel to a 1-week training for cybersecurity. If you're extremely lucky. Usually that's not even the case. They sell you, as I mentioned in the beginning, a firewall, they sell you an antivirus, and they start selling you solutions, and you pile solution over solution, one on top of the other, and you can spend millions upon millions buying those solutions recommended by your IT provider, because it's an easy revenue stream for them. And they can sell as long as you have money to spend. But in the end, you're no closer to being protected than you started, because I've seen it. I've seen it in one organization. They bought everything that was on the market. I mean, it was a government. It wasn't a law firm. It was a government organization. But you ask them, do you have this solution? Yeah, we have 5 of this from 5 different vendors. And they bought everything, and they were no closer to the beginning because they had one guy to operate. And yeah, it was not realistic, but they had everything and they felt safe. Buying security is not the way it works. You should build it. It's like health. You cannot buy a magic pill. You cannot buy a healthy body. You have to go and you have to eat healthy. And it's the same with security. It's a process. It's a long process of of a secure operation, right? And you need to get there.
Okay.
So the state
yeah,
is that law firms
yeah,
need to go a long way
right,
to get to a secure state, and
right,
they need to understand that their IT provider is an IT provider, even
right.
though the contract says that they provide security. The fact is they can't.
Yeah. So this is great. So this is a good tee up to thinking about the old way of basically checking the box on IT security versus kind of the new way. The old way might have been just thinking about either table stakes or not thinking about the different vector points, really sort of outsourcing that work that's layered on top of basically your typical IT architecture. There's a new way and a new paradigm that should basically respond, it seems like, to the new ways that law firms, and even in the context of M&A deals, are kind of exposed. So before we get to kind of the new way and why there has to be a new way of actually doing things, can you talk a little bit about the new vector points of security, and basically whenever it comes down to where are law firms, and then more importantly maybe specific to M&A deals, where are they more exposed than ever before in kind of the new paradigm that we're living in?
Well, the new way, there are, if I can actually share my screen, I think it would be
please.
best just for a second.
Please.
I'll share my screen just for a second, and you'll be able to see. Are you? Let me see. Okay, I'm sharing.
Great.
Now.
All right.
Are you able to see my screen?
Yep, we got you.
Yeah. So the new way, before you had two things, right? You had an antivirus and you had a firewall. Mm-hmm. Now you see the complexity of cyber attackers, the complexity of all the ways that they can enter an organization. Like you have initial access, and you have many ways of initial access. After the initial access, you have dozens and dozens of attack methods. And all of these attack methods, I'm just gonna stop sharing because it's too complex.
Yeah, right. But,
yeah, but all of these attack methods, they need someone to devise a way to defend against that, and it's just buying solutions is not the way. You need to think of it from an architectural point of view.
Yeah. Okay, so this is a good jumping off point. Let's try to put some color on the vector points for an M&A deal. So you showed us that list, and basically it came all the way from remote accessing all the way to email client servers and everything basically in between. Give us an example. Let's walk through a typical M&A, and if you were basically trying to, let's pretend like you were a trainer, and I was an M&A lawyer, and I really wanted to build healthy security from a healthy security exercise program for myself from the ground up. Let's do it like that, because I think that'll be an interesting way of new way versus old way.
Yeah. Well, you, the law firm, you as the law firm are the advisor of the client. So the client comes in, either they're tired of their business, or they are at the top and they're ready to sell.
Yep.
And they have no idea where to go, how to approach that. Maybe they've talked to an investment banker, maybe not. So the law firm becomes the advisor of the client, and they need to advise the clients of several things that they need to ensure right from the start. So first, they need to advise the client that their family can be a huge source of information leakage. Mm-hmm. So the family needs to shut up, basically.
Right.
Then their employees, right? You have the employees, their vendors, anyone who is even slightly aware that this owner of this business is ready to sell.
Yep.
Or on the other side, if someone wants to buy a company, it's just the same.
Yeah.
But in general, start with the family of the owner, the seller, or the buyer, their employees, anyone who might be aware, accountants, financial advisors, investment advisors, all of them, they need if they are to be aware of this, of course, you cannot force your wife to sign a non-disclosure agreement. Maybe you can, but I don't know.
Yeah, it'll be a tough couple of months. Yeah, yeah, right.
It's a tough conversation.
Yeah, it's a tough conversation.
But anyone who is going to be a part of the deal and anyone who is going to be involved in it actively should sign a non-disclosure agreement and a confidentiality agreement. That's the bare minimum. And those agreements, I mean, obviously a law firm would prepare a really good agreement. However, just having an agreement is not guaranteed that there will not be an information leakage.
Sure.
Even the law firm itself, they're having cases where they went to the news. I'm not going to mention the firm name, but it went to the news because someone overheard an M&A deal details on a train in the UK. And that person went and published it in the news, and that firm's name, they became famous
for all the wrong reasons.
For the best reason.
Yeah. Right.
So it's about being careful from an operational security point of view, just not talking about the deals in public spaces. Like when you sit with your laptop and working on documents from the coffee shop, sit with your back towards the wall, you know, such simple things which just make sense when you think about them, but if you never thought about them, you don't even think about applying them. Sure. And also everyone is working from home nowadays. And working from home presents a whole different set of technical challenges, operational challenges, and security challenges as well. Because you're not anymore in a protective environment in the shell of the corporate network. You're at home. At home, one of your kids' computers can be infected with a virus, and there might be a Chinese hacker monitoring what they're doing. But a hacker can also interact with your computer from the home network just because you're on the same network. So keep that in mind. So always use a VPN. That is an absolute necessity whenever you're in a public space or even when you're at home. See your home network as very easy to breach. Like breaking into a home Wi-Fi network takes 5 minutes. Just 5 minutes.
Just like the equipment.
I mean, the equipment to hack a Wi-Fi network costs $50 on Amazon. You can go and buy it and you can read an article online and in 5 minutes you're in. So the price to get in your home network is much lower than the price to get into a corporate Wi-Fi network. Hopefully your corporate Wi-Fi network is protected better than your home network. So keep that in mind. Always use a VPN, a legitimate VPN, preferably provided by your IT department. Otherwise, research really well into which VPN service to use. Also, what's relevant to working from home for lawyers doing M&A deals, there are many technical measures, many technical, like just the settings in a Windows computer are more than 1,000 security settings that can be applied. So talking about them would bore the hell of every one of your viewers. But in general, just take good precautions. Consider your home network as insecure. Use a VPN. That's the best advice I can give you for working from home. Try to avoid downloading software which is not authorized by your IT department. Use an updated version of your operating system. Use an updated version of your browser. Check for updates manually from time to time, because now you're not in the corporate network. Updates are not being pushed to your computer. You have to update yourself in many cases. So check for updates regardless of the operating system, Mac, Windows. Also, one important thing, Mac is no longer much safer than Windows. They're more or less on the same level of security. There is more or less the same level of malware for them, and the same level of risk. So don't think that you're better protected just because you're on a Mac. Stay cautious, be careful. Coming back to employees, right? If when there is an M&A deal, everyone involved in it should have some level of awareness. So there are information security awareness trainings out there. You can buy them. There are dozens of providers. The US military, the Defense Information Systems Agency, provides security awareness trainings for free.
Yeah.
So you can go and you can get the link and send it to all lawyers involved. And it's a 1-hour training. Let them pass it. And they will have probably the highest level of information security awareness training. And that's important, right? Information security awareness. Then the confidential documents that are being exchanged.
Right.
I mean, using an email, as I mentioned, it costs $1,000 to get into a corporate email.
Right.
It's a criminal service, and you can easily buy it.
Yeah.
So $1,000 is the price of a good, expensive dinner, right? It's nothing. Avoid using email to exchange confidential documents. If you must, protect the document with a very good password that you don't send over email.
Right.
Use a secure messaging program to send the password. Always use 2 channels of communication. Yeah. The most critical details of the deal, probably only have them on paper, only send them on paper in a sealed envelope. Avoid using digital communication unless you know that you have protected the document. It cannot be opened if someone hacks an email account, then fine. If you are sure that this document cannot be opened, it's encrypted, yeah, go ahead and use an email.
So
but in all other cases,
yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah, in all other cases, use other channels, preferably paper.
So let me try to, before we get to, and all of that was really helpful, but let me try to summarize. If we look at kind of, what I heard you say is if we look at sort of like the state of vulnerability within the context of an M&A deal, it almost seems like there's 3 main culprits. The first is people, right? Basically, the transfer of
95% of leaks happen through people. Yes.
Through people.
Yes.
Yeah. It's like I can't remember who said it.
Wait.
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
95% of leaks happen through people.
Right.
95% of leaks that we know of.
Sure. Exactly.
Because when someone orders a hack to get
right.
a certain piece of information, they will never let you know. You will never find out. It will stay under wraps forever. So those breaches, we'll never find out about them. Have they happened? Have they not?
Yeah.
We'll never know.
That's a good point. A little bit more insecurity to an already insecure world. But so the first is really people, right? The transfer of information between people. The second, it would seem like lapses in procedure, right? So basically, and I'm not making everything start with a P, but we'll keep up. So people, procedure, and then the last would basically be something along the lines of, being in vectors outside of your normal shell, basically. So protection, so outside of protection, just to close the loop with the 3 Ps. Are we missing anything as like a working mental model for people whenever they want to think about, okay, so the vector points in mass are basically whenever I'm transferring information between people, whenever I'm outside of the protective shell that I've quote unquote been created for me. And the last is I'm doing things that are outside the normal procedures of kind of how methods should be for the purposes of an M&A deal.
I can add one more P.
Yeah. Okay. Add one more P. I love it. Yeah. Perfect. You can
paranoia.
Take this. Paranoia.
Yeah.
Okay,
just a healthy level of paranoia into everything that you're doing, everyone that you're speaking with, every email that you send. Right. Just be a little bit paranoid. Healthy, but be paranoid. Like if you're relaxed and if you're in a state that is careless, you will make mistakes, and you'll make more mistakes than if you're a little bit paranoid.
Okay.
So the owner of the business to be sold has to be paranoid. The buyer has to be paranoid. The law firm has to be paranoid. The investment banker has to be. If all of them are a little bit paranoid and careful, and every bit and piece of information before they click the send button, they think, all right, have I encrypted that? Who is on the receiving side? Let me check the CC of all the email recipients.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, there is one recipient whom I've never seen before. Who is that guy? Right? Let me ask around before I click send.
Mm-hmm.
This is basic, again, operational security. Basic, like the word got out of my head, but it's basic operational security.
Does it start with a P? Probably.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah, so be careful. That is the best advice I can give. When it comes to sharing the information with your employees, it's about timeliness. When are you going to share that information? Because employees might and also your customers, should they find out? When should they find out? I mean, not the law firm's customers, but the customers of the company to be sold.
Right. Yep. Yeah.
So the law firm should advise their clients on all these topics.
Yeah.
On when to inform the clients of the business, when to inform partners, vendors. Maybe they need to be informed at different times to leverage your power play, to increase the value of the deal. Because what if, and also if there is a breach right before the deal, the company's valuation might fall to maybe not to zero, but a lot. So breaches should be avoided at all costs.
Without a doubt. Unless you want to have the wrong kind of PR, clearly.
Also,
right.
By the way, a breach can be a good thing.
Right.
Also,
sure. Yeah.
Like
maybe before we get to
about
that,
this company.
Yeah. Before we get to that, actually, I think because this I think would be instructive. So let's say we've identified those 4 P's: people, protection, protective shell, process. And basically the last is paranoia, right? Or not having a healthy enough paranoia. If nobody's paranoid enough about the deal, there's sort of an increased chance. Walk me through a little bit about your history. Walk me through a little bit. These are the situations, and you clearly have sort of this model in your head that if you walked into a deal, if I hired you, let's say, as to help run security on an M&A deal, how do you come in? First day, you walk in, you're seeing sort of these like vectors exposes. Can you kind of high level walk us through how you look at things and how you kind of start exposing risks in terms of high exposure rate, not exposure, where do they fall on sort of the spectrum? Just, I guess, color it. It would be interesting just to see if I should change careers, if that sounds fun, but more importantly, just to give some color in terms of what is it like working with sort of like a cybersecurity professional such as yourself.
There are 2 things to take care of once a security consultant enters an M&A deal. They need to find out, is the law firm protected? And they need to find out if the client is protected. Because if the client is breached and has been breached for 6 months, because the average breach stays in the network for around 1 year before it's discovered. If the company is breached during an M&A deal, the hackers will know about it. That's one thing. So we need to check. There is a cybersecurity assessment that needs to be done for the client, for the company that is being sold or bought. And then there is a cybersecurity assessment, like it's a due diligence check. It's part of the due diligence checks of. It should be. Many times it's not, because law firms don't know how to do the due diligence check on cybersecurity for a company that they are selling or buying,
right?
Helping sell or buy for someone. And then there is a security assessment that needs to happen at the law firm, and that security assessment identifies relatively quickly, in around 1 or 2 weeks, it identifies all the currently not protected vectors of attack, unprotected areas. And then the law firm is informed which areas they need to close before they can feel that their client's data is protected.
How you've been doing this for a long time, can you give kind of like an 80-20 breakdown of what you see kind of typically in terms of, so I'm, you know, I'm an AIM lawyer, I'm sitting here and I'm saying like, okay, I want to justify for myself that I have some exposure. What you're telling me is most likely than not yes. But where do I start so that, you know, I can make the assessment in terms of how much protection I necessarily need moving forward? So what?
80-20.
Yeah, 80-20.
Yeah, 80-20. I love this. I read Richard's book. On the
80-20 thinking. Great.
It's an amazing concept. And if you want to solve 80% of your vulnerabilities, really you should be thinking about your communication channels. And 80% of your communication channels is email. So if when you log into your corporate email on the web, like you have a web client for a corporate email, if you log in just with a username and a password, you're probably already hacked. That is a simple truth to realize. If a username and password is all it takes to enter into your email, you're probably hacked. You should immediately enable two-factor authentication. That is like an emergency measure to take now. Even if you're not doing M&A deals for the next foreseeable future, even if you feel extremely safe, even if your whole business is down due to the coronavirus, you should enable two-factor authentication immediately, because email is the entry point to all other corporate systems. Like if I have your username and password for your email, and I can enter your email, I can enter many other law firm systems with the same username and password.
So for example, just to put some color on that, I mean, if I have an Outlook and also Office 365, then through the integrations between my email client, Outlook, and the document management and the document, exactly, SharePoint, let's say, it's just basically you're digitally walking through all of these houses, right, that all contain all of this information, and you're able to basically get through there once you're basically inside the system. Is that a fair way to characterize
so dependency on passwords is a very outdated concept that should not be the case in your law firm anymore. I have clients for which I've achieved complete passwordless authentication, so they don't use passwords anymore.
What does that mean? How do they? Biometric scanning?
Biometric scanning of infrared cameras on their desktops, which scan the iris.
Those guys,
so you can log in to your email just with Face ID, for example, and anytime that you log in from a new location, it's going to ask you, please open up your phone, present the Face ID, and if it's you, we'll let you in. If it's not you, stealing your password is extremely easy. Stealing your phone is another level of criminal activity, and many hackers are not ready to go ahead and do a physical act of theft.
Right.
They prefer to stay at home in their cozy
right. They like remote work, right?
In their mother's basements, right?
Right.
But there are criminals working from offices where they work alongside thousands of other criminals. They have project management. They have KPIs to achieve, and entering someone's email may be one of today's 20 tasks for the day.
Right.
And they're extremely good at it. So having just a password is the 80-20. Just fix this problem. If this is the one thing that you get from this video, just fix the problem of depending on passwords.
Yeah.
And the next thing is instant messaging, like stop using WhatsApp for critical confidential information, because people take screenshots of conversations, people's phones get lost, stolen. WhatsApp is not so difficult to get a hold of. All you need to do is do a SIM swap and you get access to a person's WhatsApp messages. A SIM swap can be done quite easily. It's an easy attack. So depending on WhatsApp and similar instant messaging programs for confidential chats, it's not a good idea. I would use at least use Signal, Threema, or Telegram. The secure messaging on Telegram, not just the regular chat. There is a secure messaging option which is encrypted, and if someone takes a screenshot, you'll be notified. And that's a good thing, because once a screenshot is made, you lost control over this conversation. It can be shared with unlimited amount of people.
Yeah, that's the people vector of our 4 Ps four Ps of privacy protection. Okay, so I want to be mindful of your time, and I very much appreciate it. I think as we've kind of walked through this story, we've kind of started with explaining what's the status of most law firms today. We went into the 4 Ps, protection. I won't go over them again. We know them: protection, people, lack of paranoia, and I think the last was process. And then we went into a little bit the 80-20 in terms of the actual ways to solve those, if those were the 4 vectors. Let's finish the story with 2 scenarios. The first is a positive scenario for a law firm, kind of advising a client and what that positive scenario looks like. And then let's end it with the negative scenario. So because we live in the world of Corona, I like to end on a high. So let's start first with the downside. And you already told us a little bit, you teased it and said, one obviously very, very bad situation would be bad PR. But kind of maybe just flesh that out and tell us, what does an attack and what does a compromised M&A deal, for anybody who hasn't gone through it or just has been lucky enough to not been exposed or doesn't know, what does that really kind of look like? What are the ramifications? But before getting to the ramifications, which net are bad things, how does it roll out? What does it feel like to be hacked? Walk us through that process. How do you know how does it sort of play itself out in sort of a crisis scenario? Can you give us a little bit of insight into that?
Most times people never find out. That's the unfortunate part. I mean, they get hacked, information is leaked, it's taken, and because of the nature of information, once you make a copy, the original stays there and you'll never find that someone touched it. So that's one reality that we need to be aware of, and checking if you were hacked is something which most people don't even do. Right. Next thing, how does it feel? Well, let's say you walk into a meeting, you're the law firm, your client's sitting next to you. On the other side of the table, you have the buyer and you have their law firm. And you try to leverage some of the information that you have on your side and to negotiate the price. And suddenly the other side says, yeah, but we already know that this is not true. And we already know that this and that. And they start mentioning facts that only you and your client know because you've only privately discussed this over email. And suddenly how it feels, the feeling is that you no longer, your client paid you a large sum of money, and you guarantee that you will have the leverage and you will guarantee the highest possible price for their business to be sold or to be bought, the cheapest possible, depending on which side you are. And suddenly the other side takes your leverage away, and even they can have leverage on you now, and they can force you to accept their terms. That's how it feels to have been compromised. You lose your leverage, and the leverage goes to someone else. In one of the scenarios, we're not even talking about the client losing their business, losing their their customers, their product losing value, and so on. These are all kinds of other consequences of a breach happening at the client side, on your side, that are incalculable. There are cases where a breach can cause hundreds of millions of dollars of loss. So how does it feel? I don't know. I've never lost that much money myself, but I've seen people being breached, and I can tell you, getting robbed, getting mugged on the street, and getting hacked feels very much the same. It is an emotional trauma. So it definitely doesn't feel good.
That sounds bad. So let's talk a little bit about good. Let's talk a little bit about first, from the perspective of a law firm, play out the scenario where you've sort of covered your basis and you've kind of done the due diligence. How does this help the deal kind of move forward? And what sort of representations can you go above and beyond making to the client that, obviously from the perspective of being his advisor, you can kind of like represent? Are there certain, nothing's guaranteed in this world, but are there certain factors and sort of positions that you can bring to the table whenever you know that you've kind of covered your basis from the perspective of being a law firm and being kind of an advisor that really obviously is beneficial to your client? Can you just sort of play those things out for us in terms of, when you know that you're covered, certain things? Is there anything special that kind of can happen within the context of a deal like an M&A deal?
Well, your client comes to you for protection.
Yeah.
Right. They come for assurance that they trust your law firm for whatever reason. Maybe they work with you for many years. Maybe you've been recommended to them, and they expect you, the law firm, to provide them the level of protection and assurance that the deal will go well that they expect, and probably even more. So if you lead the deal from the first conversation, if you lead them to a secure room, if you make sure that the most confidential discussions are only recorded on paper and are only happening in a secure room, not in a public coffee shop or on the street, if you show your client that you are prepared, that you have covered your bases, that you're not accepting documents being sent unencrypted. You tell the client, listen, never send me an email. We take great care of information security at our law firm. We only accept encrypted documents. Here is the way to send us the password to the encrypted document. Here is the way to send us confidential information. You show all of that to your clients, not just show, but practice it. And if you really do practice it, then your law firm will not be the reason for a breach. And if your law firm is not the reason for a breach, and the law firm is the easiest point in the chain, the easiest link to break, if you remove this and if you turn to be the strongest link, then the deal has a much higher chance to be successful. You have a much higher chance to not feel this situation on the table where you lose your leverage and your clients loses their leverage, and the deal is successful. I mean, celebrating a deal in a club together with your clients, I would say that is the best possible scenario after the deal is successful, right? I mean,
or
you have shown your professionalism,
right?
Yeah.
So let's close. And I really want to thank you for a really great conversation, Alex. This has been fantastic. Let's close with there is a phrase which is, don't cut off your nose to spite your face, or basically this idea around saving a couple pennies to really spending a couple pennies to really save a bunch of dollars at the end of the day. Can you talk about sort of because if it's like most life, saving a couple pennies, sometimes trying to save a couple pennies ends up being very, very expensive. Can you talk a little bit about the difference between upfront being proactive, sort of upfront, and the costs associated with that relative to the net cost of kind of trying to put the cats back in the bag, which we all know cats don't go back into the bag once. Can you talk about the difference between the costs associated, not only just the financial cost, but obviously kind of like the second order, third order cost? What is the difference between upfront being proactive versus back end reactive?
Have you heard about the DOA Piper breach a few years ago?
No, I don't think so. Bring me up to speed.
So DOA Piper was breached a few years ago when there was a famous ransomware going around and it was infecting all kinds of companies. So DOA Piper had all their offices globally completely shut down. They switched to paper for a certain period of time, and they lost access to their computers in all their global offices. Why? They probably had and I'm sure they had an amazing IT team, but they missed it's such a shame that they missed two extremely small and cheap, actually free settings in the Windows operating system. They had to change two settings and they wouldn't have to lose 30% of their clients. They wouldn't have to close down all of their offices. So when you say pennies, saving pennies on the dollar, they had to do a simple configuration change, a simple patch, a simple update. It wouldn't have costed them anything. So it's practically a free setting that they could have applied, and they would have avoided a huge loss, huge financial, huge reputational loss, and loss of clients as well, due to a very simple thing. And many companies did the same. Many companies suffered from the same cyber attack globally, but all of them could have applied a simple configuration change. So when we're speaking about the cost, like my book is 170 pages in PDF form, 270 pages in printed form. It's 270 pages of free advice. I'm a person who builds secure architectures. I'm not a person who resells solutions for a quick profit. And I firmly believe in applying sound security architecture first before you start spending money. So my best advice would be stop spending money on buying security solutions. Build secure, sound systems. Protect, like Office 365 has 280 security settings. How much does it cost to apply those 280 security settings? It's practically free. Yeah, it costs some time. Someone has to spend time to check and implement them, but does it cost money to click on the checkboxes? No, it's free. It's already in your Office 365. Same goes for Google apps and any other cloud service that you're using. Saving pennies on the dollar, in this case, or investing pennies to save a dollar would be invest time to build a sound security architecture. It doesn't cost money, it costs expertise and time.
Yeah,
that's all.
So that's about as good of a place to stop, I think. I really want to thank you for all the expertise today. Tell us a little bit about how we can get in contact with you. What's the best way to reach out? Obviously, you have a website. Tell us a little bit your contact details. Talking about communication.
It's easiest. I mean, my name is quite difficult to pronounce, especially my last name. But you can find atlantsecurity.com. That's the easiest way to find. And the number on the contact page rings directly my mobile phone. It's a one-man shop. I'm a solopreneur, so you'll reach me directly. There is no other. I'm not outsourcing it anywhere. So that's it. I mean, that's the easiest way. atlantsecurity.com and call me.
Awesome.
Or find me on LinkedIn, but finding me on LinkedIn would be, you have to type my name. My name is difficult.
Well, we'll put
Sverdlov.
Yeah, we'll put all your details in the actual post, so everybody will be able to contact you, certainly. And that's Atlant, so it's like Atlanta without the A. So ATLANT security.com.
Yeah.
Perfect. Alex, thank you so much for the time. I really appreciate it. I know I learned a lot. I'm sure everybody else did. I will never leave the 4 Ps in my mind. And you will be happy to know that I use a VPN while I'm both running around in the coffee shops of Brooklyn, all the way down to even whenever I'm in my home. You never know who's in your security and in your apartment. I know it's just, in my case, it's a bunch of old people and people in their 20s, but that's, but you never know regardless. So thank you so much for the time. Very much appreciate it. Very much appreciate you having on Spotlight. Take care. And any final words for anybody?
I'm just happy to be here. I'm happy to share advice. It's something, I love my work, so I'm always happy to share advice. If you have questions, I'll be happy to help anyone. Yeah. It's just the love of my life is my work. Right. So I'm happy to share it with anyone. So that's my final words is just apply everything that I suggested in this video. Apply it today and you'll be much safer than you were before that. That's it.
Okay. All right. So for another episode of Nexel Spotlight, this is Ben Chiriboga, head of growth at Nexel, telling you 2-factor authentication. That's the key. And wash your hands.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much, Alex. Yeah. Have a great rest of the day. And thanks for being on Spotlight.
Thank you.